March 1985. A small-town banker in Omaha received a personal letter from Warren Buffett. The envelope contained a check for $50,000 and a single line of instruction. Buy land nobody wants. Wait 20 years. The banker thought it was madness. The land was worthless farmland outside the city limits, surrounded by nothing but cornfields and highway noise. But he trusted Buffett. 20 years later, that same plot sold for $4.2 million when Omaha expanded westward. The banker became a millionaire. Warren Buffett became a billionaire. And the public never heard this story because it revealed the one secret the wealthy never share. They don't want your money in banks. They want your money sitting still while theirs moves. For decades, the financial advice given to ordinary people has been remarkably consistent. Save your money, open a savings account, avoid debt, live within your means. Meanwhile, the wealthiest 1% have been doing the exact opposite. They borrow millions at low interest rates. They keep minimal cash in banks. They buy assets most people consider too risky or too expensive. And they never, ever tell you why. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a game with rules that were written by people who already won. And Warren Buffett, the so-called Oracle of Omaha, has been one of its most brilliant players. Not because he's a genius, but because he understood the rules before most people even knew there was a game. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Buffett built his empire by doing three things he tells ordinary people never to do. He borrowed heavily when interest rates were favorable. He invested in companies during disasters when everyone else was panic selling. And most critically, he moved his wealth into tax shelters and legal structures designed to compound growth invisibly, far away from the scrutiny of the IRS or public perception. Let's go back to 1962. Buffett was 32 years old, managing a small investment partnership with $7.2 million in assets. That year, American Express was hit by a scandal involving fraudulent warehouse receipts for salad oil. The stock crashed by 40%. Analysts called it a death sentence. The media declared American Express finished. And retail investors, ordinary people like you, sold in a panic, trying to salvage whatever they could. Buffett did the opposite. He borrowed money to buy more shares. He convinced his partners to double down. And within 3 years, American Express had recovered, and Buffett's investment had tripled. The lesson wasn't that he was smarter than everyone else. The lesson was that he had access to credit, liquidity, and emotional detachment that ordinary investors didn't. He could afford to wait. You couldn't. This is the hidden architecture of wealth. Access to capital during crisis. When markets collapse, the wealthy don't panic. They go shopping. But they're not shopping with their own money. They're shopping with borrowed money, secured against assets that won't lose value in the long term. It's a strategy built on one brutal truth. The system rewards those who can survive volatility, and it punishes those who can't. Now imagine you're a middle-class worker in 1962. You've saved $10,000 over 10 years. The stock market crashes. You lose 30% overnight. You panic. You sell. You preserve what's left because you can't afford to lose more. Meanwhile, Warren Buffett is on the phone with his banker, securing a loan to buy the exact same stocks you just sold at a discount. Who wins? The person with access to credit. The person who doesn't need the money immediately. The person who can wait 5 years, 10 years, 20 years for the market to recover. That person is never you. It's always them. But here's the part they don't tell you in personal finance books or college economics courses. Buffett didn't just buy stocks and wait. He restructured his entire investment vehicle to avoid taxes, maximize compounding, and ensure that his wealth grew invisibly. In 1965, he took control of Berkshire Hathaway, a failing textile company, and transformed it into a holding company. This wasn't about textiles. It was about tax efficiency. Here's how it worked. Instead of earning income directly, which would be taxed at the highest marginal rate, Buffett earned wealth through unrealized capital gains. He bought companies, held them inside Berkshire Hathaway, and never sold them. As long as he didn't sell, he didn't owe taxes. His wealth grew at 20% per year, compounding tax-free, while ordinary workers paid income tax, property tax, sales tax, and payroll tax on every dollar they earned.
By the time Buffett was 60, his effective tax rate was lower than his secretary's. And he admitted this publicly, not as a confession, but as a political statement. He called for higher taxes on the wealthy, knowing full well that higher income taxes wouldn't affect him because he didn't earn income. He earned wealth, and wealth in America is taxed far less than labor. This is the quiet violence of the financial system. It rewards patient capital and punishes desperate labor. It advantages those who can delay gratification indefinitely and crushes those who need money now. And the wealthiest people in the world, Buffett, Bezos, Musk, Gates, have built their empires not by working harder, but by understanding this asymmetry and exploiting it ruthlessly. Let's fast forward to 2008. The global financial system is collapsing. Lehman Brothers has failed, AIG is insolvent, the stock market is in free fall. Ordinary Americans are losing their homes, their jobs, their retirement savings. Panic is everywhere, and in the middle of this chaos, Warren Buffett writes a $5 billion check to Goldman Sachs. Not as a gift, as an investment. He buys preferred shares with a 10% dividend and warrants to purchase common stock at a steep discount. It's a deal Goldman Sachs would never offer to ordinary investors, but they're desperate and Buffett has liquidity. Within 2 years, Goldman Sachs has recovered, and Buffett's investment has made him $3.7 billion in profit. This is the crisis playbook of the ultra-wealthy. When everyone else is drowning, you buy the lifeboat company. But you can only do this if you have cash reserves, access to credit, and the legal structures to move quickly without regulatory friction. Ordinary people had none of these. They were too busy trying to survive. And here's the psychological trap that keeps this system running. The wealthy tell you that their success is due to discipline, patience, and smart decision-making. They write books about frugality. They give speeches about delayed gratification. They tell you to save 10% of your income, invest in index funds, and wait 40 years. And technically, this advice works. If you're starting with capital, access to credit, and the ability to weather multiple recessions without going bankrupt. But if you're starting with debt, medical bills, student loans, and rent that consumes 50% of your income, this advice is useless. You can't delay gratification when you're already behind. You can't invest in the stock market when you're one paycheck away from eviction. And you certainly can't buy the dip when the dip coincides with your layoff. This is why wealth inequality isn't an accident. It's embedded in the rules of the game. The system isn't designed to help you get rich. It's designed to help people who are already rich stay rich. And every piece of financial advice you've ever received, save more, spend less, avoid debt, is carefully calibrated to keep you playing the game without ever winning it. Warren Buffett knows this. He said it publicly. In a 2011 interview, he admitted, "There's class warfare all right, but it's my class, the rich class. That's making war, and we're winning." He wasn't joking. He was describing reality. The tax code, the financial system, the legal structures that govern wealth, they were all designed by wealthy people to benefit wealthy people. And the greatest trick they ever pulled was convincing everyone else that they could win too, if they just worked hard enough. But here's the most unsettling part. Buffett's wealth didn't come from saving pennies or cutting coupons or skipping lattes. It came from leverage, access, and systemic advantage. It came from being in the room when deals were made. It came from having liquidity during crises. It came from tax loopholes that don't exist for wage earners. And it came from a financial system that rewards patient capital and punishes desperate labor. So when you hear a billionaire say, "Just invest in index funds and wait," remember, they didn't get rich following that advice. They got rich by doing the opposite, by borrowing money at low rates, by buying distressed assets during crashes, by structuring their wealth to avoid taxes, and by ensuring that their money compounded invisibly while yours sat in a savings account earning 0.5% interest. The game was rigged from the start, and the only way to win is to stop playing by their rules. Now, imagine it's 1990. Buffett is 59 years old. Berkshire Hathaway stock is trading at $8,000 per share. A young investor calls Buffett's office asking for advice. "Should I buy Berkshire stock?" she asks. Buffett's answer is telling, "If you have to ask, you probably can't afford it." This wasn't arrogance, it was honesty. Berkshire Hathaway stock has never split. It's deliberately priced to exclude small investors. By 2025, a single share of Berkshire Hathaway Class A stock trades above $600,000. Most people will never own even one share, and that's by design. Buffett created a financial product that ensured wealth concentration. The longer you hold Berkshire stock, the richer you become, but only if you were rich enough to buy in at the start. If you bought one share in 1990 for $8,000, it's worth $600,000 today. That's a 75-fold return. But if you couldn't afford $8,000 in 1990, you were locked out forever. This is how generational wealth works. It's not about working harder or being smarter. It's about starting with enough capital to access investments that compound at high rates without triggering tax events. It's about playing a game where the entry fee is already more than most people earn in a year. And Buffett's advice to ordinary people: invest in low-cost index funds, be patient, don't try to time the market, is good advice if you're not trying to become a billionaire. If you're just trying to retire comfortably, index funds will get you there in 40 years. But if you're trying to build the kind of wealth that changes your family's trajectory forever, index funds won't cut it. You need leverage, access, and asymmetric opportunities, and those are reserved for people who are already in the club. The uncomfortable truth is this: the financial advice given to ordinary people is designed to produce mediocre results. It's designed to keep you in the middle class, working until you're 65 and retiring with just enough to survive. It's not designed to make you wealthy, because if everyone became wealthy, the system would collapse. Wealth requires scarcity. If everyone could buy distressed assets during crashes, there would be no crashes. If everyone had access to tax-efficient holding companies, tax revenue would evaporate. If everyone could borrow at 2% interest to invest at 8% returns, inflation would spiral out of control. The system works because most people don't have access to these tools, and the people who do have access will never tell you how they got it. Warren Buffett is the kindly grandfather of American capitalism. He lives in the same house he bought in 1958. He eats at McDonald's. He drives an old car. He donates billions to charity. And he tells you to save your money, invest wisely, and be patient. But behind the folksy persona is a man who understands the game better than almost anyone alive. He knows that wealth isn't built by saving. It's built by borrowing, buying, and waiting. And he knows that the greatest competitive advantage in finance isn't intelligence. It's access. So the next time you hear a billionaire tell you to save 10% of your income and invest in index funds, ask yourself, is that how they got rich? Or is that what they want you to do while they play a completely different game? Because the secret isn't what they tell you. The secret is what they never say.